If religions were to be destroyed, psychologists that work for the governing class would finish taking over, because there would be no solid ground that we all stand on, no common ground, no sacred ground that we all commune and relate to. It is now left up to whoever controls the trends that help make up social life and people relations. So, in the absence of religion being believed and a powerful force in a nation, the governing class completely controls you, whether or not everyone's spiritual or not, whether or not everyone thinks they're moral. What is okay in one state is not okay in another. For example, the age of consent. The varying laws from state to state, and in some cases from city to city, the different city ordinances. Everything comes subjective. And who controls it? It's the celebrities, it's the marketing staff, the marketing professionals. It is mental health that drugs people and says what is socially normative, and what are they going on? They're going on what the government and the corporations are pushing. And of course, these people want to create a culture that is consistent with the desires of the people they look up to in history, whether they are family or be they, philosophers like Nietzsche and Plato and other eugenicist filth. So let me just wrap this up by saying, when you look at where the money is, the influence, the wealth, the old money especially, you look at which countries tolerate homosexuality and which ones are completely against them, like Nigeria, where about only 1% say that society should accept homosexuality, according to this poll on the screen, and their data rather. So, when you look at how it breaks down financially, politically, socially, religiously, you say, well, why don't they accept it? Who does accept it, and why do they accept it? Is it because they're great people, or is it because they're racist people, and historically their races were the homosexuals like Socrates, and their societies are based on homosexuals? And you see it in mental health with Freud. Freud and his gay lover. Powerful impact. And you see, where's the main homosexual movements? Israel and Berlin. And you look into the history of these nations and their cultures, and it becomes painfully obvious that homosexuality is a fundamental part of Western culture. And it is not the case in most other cultures. And there's no one truly understands exactly why that is, but certainly, there's a continuity when it comes to the secret societies and the trendsetters and the privileged clubs, groups, and organizations that market what your social life will be to you, and use different techniques that they've experimented with for years in psychology, including behaviorism, and operant conditioning and behavior modification techniques, for groups, not just individuals, to slowly but surely change the culture in society. So they brought everyone here, and they want to subtly, and using what they pretend is a neutral scale, want to change all of our cultures to this kind of imperialistic Western culture that predates Christianity, and one might argue is the essence of who Europeans really are before they were confused by a Middle Eastern religion known as Christianity. Thank you. So the difference between what I just said and what you hear a lot of these black people saying on social medias, who are funded on record, openly funded, is right there in the newspapers. Black Lives Matter, Soros, Ford Foundation, on record, they funded it. They also, on record, fund LGBT movements, them and their networks. Okay, the difference between what I'm saying and what they're saying is that to them Christianity is a white religion. You know, that's what they're saying at least, and it is destroying African culture, and it is historically done so. Okay, and it is the white man's plan, where in actuality, the white governing class, with their Jewish allies, do not like Judaism or Christianity in its mainstream current form. They want to go back to the time when pagans and Jews built Solomon's temple, back into the glory days, the good old days. And they want people to look at people based on their cultures because they believe that white people have evolved to be superior when you look at man with the scale of their own culture. So in a gay, feminist, pagan, European-styled, multicultural society, if everything is fair, the white man, in the mind of the eugenicist, will naturally rise above other people, and so will the Jews, because they believe that this is where they come from. This is who they are. It's like judging people by how white you are and how Jewish you are, and of course the whites and the Jews are going to come out better. Okay? So in reality, they are a bunch of people who are wittingly or otherwise pushing the New World Order's agenda and destroying the thing that the white governing class and their Jewish allies believe is destroying their covert, dark, and nasty kind of clandestine culture. And one last thing. When they talk about a sexual revolution, they're talking about rebelling against the moral standards that have been set by the church in the past. As the church interprets the Bible, people's various churches interpret the Bible, especially the Catholic Church, in a way that's similar to the Supreme Court interpreting the Constitution. So, when America said we wish to separate church and state, they weren't just like, well, the church is corrupt and that's okay, we just want to separate. Their attitude was more like, you people are horrible and the world is better off without you. We want nothing to do with you. And when we get powerful enough, we will destroy and liberate, everything that you people have built, and we're going to introduce this psychology-based culture where we will, quote-unquote, liberate people, even if we have to deceive. We will make the world we want, the way we want it to be, in a way that is similar to what Lucifer would have done. So when you look at what they're doing, to some of them it is like a playful way to say, well, Lucifer is really gets it, and God really doesn't get it. And Lucifer's more in tune with what our needs and nature. And some people said, well, that's because Lucifer was halfway between Satan and an angel. Lucifer represents the angel that is on his way out, So he understands the temptations and how to fulfill them, but he hasn't completely given into darkness. And he also understands doing God's work. And he, in doing so, before he fell out of grace, he was the top angel. Why? Some philosophers and theologians would argue because he got it right. If you're still struggling with that, think about it like this. The affairs of your government, right? Have you ever heard of the Council on Foreign Affairs? Because what goes on in other countries affects yours. Sometimes you need to make clever alliances to survive in this harsh world with powerful nations that are always looking to expand in more ways than one. So in order to truly separate church from state, the church has to be all but destroyed, if not destroyed. And not just physically and symbolically, but in the minds of people. The reputation of the church destroyed. Everything it stands for. Do not allow it to resurrect itself. And then, and only then, Can the church truly be separated from the state and the state of mind and the spiritual state of the people? And this is what these alchemists and occultists really sought to do. And they knew it couldn't happen overnight. And what is a very common saying these days? Rome wasn't built in a day. Yeah, it wasn't.